Hello, and welcome to today's Augustana Human Library session. The title of today's human book is Dancing Down the Tunnel. And this book's abstract is: when your brain can't be fixed, you find someone experimenting on how to do it. When you lose speech and thinking, you have someone drill holes in your head. When you are told of your health limits, you do an Olympic triathlon. But what do you do when you're told that this year will be your last?
Where we'll start is where the story actually starts is when I'm 2. But I don't know it until I'm 30, or just so I have had cancer and oligodendroglioma. Has a nice fun name. That's been eating away at my brain and making my brain move around, and it doesn't look on the inside like yours does. Now, it does some things. This part on my brain right here has been cut open 3 times. Um, all experimental. The first time was supposedly the second time it had ever been done. There was only one place or 2 places in the world that did it, and I was in Edmonton at the time and found out it's in Calgary. And I went to the good friends and went to Augustana with the daughter of a neurologist who's working at the neurosurgeon. And so that's how, by super luck, I got into this, and likely, well, almost certainly, the reason I'm alive right now and living by myself right here, and or being alone right here. And that's not a concern, not an issue. I mean, my life is still measured in single digits of months, but I just sort of keep on going, and keeping on having fun. And as things change, abilities change, I just sort of say that's normal. But in terms of normal, I did 2 half triathlons last year, 2 full Olympic triathlons year before, and planning on doing another 2, hopefully full triathlon this year, this summer. So I still view myself as being able to do anything I want. And my speech hopefully will be good today. It'd be hilarious if it's bad. And you'll have to interrupt and say, I have no earthly idea what it is that you know, because there are days where I think I'm normal, or days where I know that I'm not speaking, but it varies. And I went a couple months without having any of those sort of weird, and I've had a few in the last couple weeks. But again, if that's the worst part of my life, is that my speech isn't perfect and I don't sleep perfectly, I probably can't complain compared to the rest of the world. So that's my super quick summary. Now I'm asking a question. Is there a part of that, when you hear that, that's more interesting, like the event of when I found out I had an oligodendroglioma, living with, before? Any thoughts in your head about that?
Well, I think you should describe when you found out with your
Okay.
friends. Mhm.
So I had landed. I was living in Vancouver doing my PhD, and on behavior. And I landed, and a couple of friends were picking me up, and they drove me here to their place, and then they were going to Edmonton, and I was kind of being, oh, I didn't realize it. But I was saying, oh, I don't think I'll really go. And they're like, oh, come with us. And thank goodness that they did, because along that route, I have no memory of this, but I was a little lippy. And you can ask just about anyone that I'm not lippy. I'll do whatever. all, I'm not going to agree and happy to have a discussion, but I'm not going to fight and whatever just to say something. And apparently on that drive to Edmonton, I was just had said some lippy things that these people who had known me since my undergrad that were like, you're just saying weird things. And they kind of got past. I only found out about it, I don't know, like a year later that I had actually done. But they're driving, and then we we get to Edmonton, get to like Highway 36, and then I open up the door just outside of the big computer store that's been there forever. That's right on highway, right on 10, whatever it is, 104, 103. And the Memory Plus, no,
Memory Express. Memory
Memory,
Express.
yes. And got out of the door and started smashing into the wall. And it was just like, and fortunately, Arlo and Amanda were there. It took 3 minutes for the ambulance to get there, and it took a couple more minutes for the ambulance to go. And by this time I had stopped sort of shaking. Usually what I do is I drop down to the floor to sort of show that I think at first I was doing big shakes, and then I was doing little shakes for half an hour, and then I was just out. But when I had stopped, the ambulance police were not such in a rush with me. I had stopped doing that. Didn't appear to be an instant thing. And fortunately, they sent me to U of A. And not that they knew exactly what to do with me, because they didn't know what was wrong with me at all. And so I spent a week at the hospital. And then I'd go to my wife's house, Terry, in Lacombe, and then I'd be there for a week, and then my conditions would go down, and I had some sort of local doctors who were trying to figure me out, but it was just kind of, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And then I'd feel bad and get taken back to Edmonton to the hospital, and ended up doing sort of that 4 times, and no one figuring out exactly what the story is. But because I went to Augustana, and one of my best friends' dad, who knows me, is a neurologist, and no one here could figure it out with all the information. I talked to him on the phone, and he's like, I think you've got, I don't know if he was that. He said oligodendroglioma, or he's got something going on in your head. And I just described it to him. And I think he did say, just from talking on the phone, I think you've got an oligodendroglioma. We should bring you down to Calgary and do some tests. And then for some more luck, he worked with one of 2 people on Earth who were doing surgeries that were, because it's in my brain. So this part of my brain, in the end, has been cut open 3 times. And so after I just talked with him on the phone, he's thinking, I think you've got something happening, and I think, we're talking cancer or usually I'm good with it. Oligodendroglioma, or something sort of like that or one other one. And so it's sort of it's a shock, but I'm also me. So I had these weird things happen, but at the same time, they were dealt with to some degree, or even though some people, they couldn't figure it out when I had that access to him. Then I'm talking to the head of that type of work, where we're cutting up your brain, and he had developed the ability to remotely do surgery. So where I am right now, I could do surgery on all of you or any of you. And he did it with the Canadian, what's the Canadian Space Agency? And they had built this, they had been involved in building this thing. And if you read about this and the first time it ever happened that they'd used this remote surgery, so you're playing the video game, doctors got all the hands here, and it's just like what you've seen. And I'm in an MRI machine getting screenshots all the time, and the doctor's just sort of okay. Which there I by a billion to one chance I actually met online the girl who became famous sort of before iPhones and all that. We're talking 2006, 2007, 2008, sort of in there, and 2008 when it was actually used for the first time, and that's in April of 2006. I did it in February 2006, so I'm not sure if the reason is that they used her as the first person ever is because she's cooler or smarter than me or what it was. But I always laugh when, when I can
She's
now.
shorter, Jason.
Sorry?
She's shorter. Go with that.
There we go.
Jason's very tall.
And we now talk to each other, and she has had more things to deal with too. She just had surgery yesterday, but that also means she's stronger than me. But she accidentally met me online, posting something that never, and sort of, I've assumed people that don't know me don't write things, and it wasn't anything to do with oligodendroglioma. But I think she basically something I'd written was sort of stupid or didn't seem like anything. And we started talking, and I realized sooner than her, I'm like, you are the famous one, because she was covered by basically then, we didn't have the computer that we do now. And so everyone in the world knew about the surgery. So I figured out who she is, and then talking with her, and sort of, I feel like whenever you talk with someone who's better than you at something or whatever it is, it's like, I've got it easy, even though my brain's being cut open with this part of my head was taken off. Oh, they're taking all the everything else, so they can get out there, they put the torch in, the little things you'd imagine with your fingers, but they're doing it remotely. And she a month later, like I said, did the first thing, but she has, I don't know how many different spots. I have essentially one spot over there that's, if you look at a picture and look in the picture shows it from my MRIs, that over here there's just a section, kind of a couple of golf balls that has been taken out, and it's just, there's nothing there. But got great people doing the work. And so I've done it 3 times, and had, surgery done. And they're like, this could happen, this could happen, this can happen. You could die, you won't be able to speak and all that. I've come out, one time I totally forgot about it. The other times, like, oh yeah, a week later, I spent a week not feeling perfect. The last time I went out with my dad for a burger that night. So I had the surgery, got out, and went straight to that. And also, and I'm sure there's a million bad things that have happened to people, but so I've had surgery, but I also had I blew on the outside of my brain. We've got all sorts of vessels, but I blew one there, and so blood went everywhere, and it probably had been there for a while, but it just had too much pressure. Fortunately, it was on, between the skin on the outside and the actual brain. And that was, I think, 2 months later, and blood everywhere on the inside, but it was one of those things like, oh, okay, we'll just keep going. And again with that one, if things shoot out and you look at your brain, you got a 26 centimeter line of blood that's been blowing out of your head, and all sorts of other ones, and yet I was able just to continue on. I've had silence from everyone. Oh, fast forward, you shall receive.
And a question.
Yeah.
So you've had surgery 3 times. Did they take 2 golf ball size out each time of tumor?
The first was sort of that size. The second one was of a different, I guess it was 60% regrowth. So it was essentially that same area. And the third one is on a little bit of a different area. They're all sort of over here. But the other ones go right to the edge. So if we could take the skull off like they do, we would see, okay, this is where things are. This is the hole that kind of starts here and goes. It's like, I don't know, sort of that size of that, and then goes to the middle of my head-ish.
So what happens when you have like big kind of cavities of space then?
For me, well, at first, I couldn't understand how anyone was not hearing these extremely loud sounds. I just assumed for the first while until something happened, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "The world's going like," but that was just the sort of all the fluid moving around in my head, and eventually it filled up with the whole thing filled up with fluid, and so I don't notice anything at all. But that's when the fourth thing was just after the third MRI when I blew the blood. They just put screws into my head, so they were trying to release the pressure there, and so they put screws in my head or holes essentially, so that the pressure could get out, and that worked really well. And there hasn't been any side effects that I know about that. So we're just
And
keeping on going.
was it under pressure? Did blood like come out hard, or was it kind of something that just drained?
We were able to drain it if I hadn't have gone there, and I went to the hospital here after I've been putting my daughter to sleep and was feeling like, I don't feel great. I'll go there and they'll be like, you're fine. But I went there and my doctor was like, you got a sort of a section that's blowing up here. And so I didn't realize the system was so amazing. So he flew down from Calgary, even though I live in Camrose, flew me back to my hospital, Foothills, and took me back up to my usual bed. And the next morning, and that night, my one doctor came and talked to me, just seeing how I was doing. And the next morning, my doctor came and saw me with his people who were learning. And by that time, I couldn't speak. That was the one big thing about this one is my speech. Like I said, it was weird with my daughter, and then it would sort of go away, so I couldn't really say anything that made any sense. And I was phoning people, and I was trying to say I'm okay, but all I did is scare the living daylights of them, because I mean, I was like, Fred, Mark, Wall, and I was trying. Like I spent an hour trying to organize a 5-word sentence, but just failed, and just all 5 sentences or all 5 messages I left people were just either terrifying or they had no idea what it was.
Who's Fred?
Fred Simpson is my pseudonym, so I just use whenever. But I think of Monty, and then that my best friend in that situation, who's from Augustana as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, with all these things, it's sort of, well, we just keep on going, and there, even though like I was supposed to die last end of early spring, that was kind of the thing, and now I intend to be around the summer and swimming and doing whatever, playing tennis. I'm going. I'm leaving the province, which I don't. I guess I'm just going to isolated with my parents and play lots of tennis and cards and be in another country. But yeah, that's how did I do it? Not skipping over, all of my description of work that was done
Oh,
on it.
it's fine, Jason. It's different every time. Why don't you talk a little bit about, because your daughter has been alive the whole time since you've discovered this as an adult that you have it, even though you've had it your whole life.
Yeah.
So how have you talked to your daughter over the years? Because most parents, if they're asked, mommy, daddy, I'm afraid you're going to die, you comfort the child saying, we're all going to die someday, but no, I'm okay, I'm not going to. But have you been honest with her for the whole time? You tell her when things are not going well? Like how have you managed that relationship?
I told her the whole time, and sort of more detail as she grows up. From a straight on talking to me from the beginning, she's been doing spectacular. She, yeah, when she's just talking to Terry or mom or her grandma and grandpa, you know, if she's, because those are when conversations tend to happen, because they don't want to talk too negatively about me, even though I'm the one that's can handle it better than everyone else. But they're, I think, afraid to talk to me too. So I do get conversations and I do bring them up, but they try to stay positive. And Esri is very worried about me, but she she has no problem talking to me like a grade 7 kid who's a teenager, and telling me like this or whatever I was doing. I'm wrong. I'm telling her that she's wrong. So she's a teenager and she has no issue being a teenager when she's around me.
Curious what it's like to live with that knowledge of your mortality. I mean, we all know that there is an end, but we all think it's far off. Now, you've already lived past what you were told was the end. How has that been emotionally for you?
I was kind of designed for it, so it's much easier, I think, than others. When it was short time periods at the beginning, when it was like Monty, my best friend, you know, he need to come down on Friday, or am I going to be live on Monday, kind of thing. That was, and even then, wow, I'm also a positive person. I forget the negative things, because I was telling one of the people who were there about it. They're like, no, you were more worried or more of that sort of thing. But I can know that, yeah, I can just keep on going. Once I lose my ability to walk and move around, I think is more when I will get to deal with it. And because the surgery that was, or the second chemo radiation that was done, was incredibly successful. Like the first time I could see it in, like there's 6 people that take care of me. I have 6 doctors, and sort of depending on what it is. And this guy was, the radiation was his thing. And the first time I could tell that the work had been positive, just for the smile on the face. But the second time even more, because he's speaking it out to me positively, which is not exactly, especially in the way he said it, is not what you expect from doctors. The only thing that's interesting is we had the first one, and then it was, I can't remember, 40% dying, 20% not being able to see, and all these things. And I was like, I'm gonna make it through this. It doesn't matter, I'm gonna, if I got 10% vision, that's fine and all that. But I've lived that whole time now basically not losing. Some days my speech isn't as perfect, but basically I haven't lost anything. And I think now, if I lose all my abilities or that sort of thing, I'm not sure how much I'm going to fight it to be able to barely see and barely talk and that. I've gotten all this extra time and I got it for free. The what I lost is so little that I'm up for whatever, doing another radiation and with the same effects kind of thing. But I've got all the forms signed as well of if I go under not to bring me back and that kind of thing. So having this second chance at full ability has changed me. I don't know that I've got to live my life and I've gotten to live extra or whatever. I don't think I need to live that really rough life, which originally I was like, I'm going to keep living. I'm going to do whatever. But I think that's changed in the last 3-4 months when I get to live like this perfectly fine. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you. Is it hard for your friends? I just think, I know with people at church when, they get a cancer diagnosis and everybody is emotional and they don't know how to talk to the person. Have your friends still been able to be near to you, still interact with you normally, or do you sense an awkwardness on their part?
I think, especially my friends that know that I'm up for whatever, and all my close friends are able to be there with me and to be able to do the things and do fun activities instead of spending the time worrying about it.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah. Now, I'm sure there are some people, sort of the next level of friends, that have a rough time dealing with it. But I'm trying to think of people that I haven't seen in a while, but I've talked to on the phone. But and I think listening to me is, because I'm so amazing, just listening to me being alive and all the things, and I want to go out and do something or whatever, makes it more comfortable for them, if that makes sense. So yeah, and it is super handy, especially right after the surgery. And a week later, I was actually in pretty rough shape, which of course I'm me, so I just forget that completely. I'm like, I had nothing, I just left. But yeah, I have people, and I have relaxed parents. They didn't, they were in the place that became an agricultural thing, and millions of people were killed. Which I really should know the name, and I can't think of what it is. That's where I get my tea from. But just that, and that's one thing. Experiences. I used to be able to remember all sorts of things. Now I can only do one thing at a time. So I think about something else and then I forget what the question is. That's one very noticeable thing I do. So I forgot the question I was supposed to be answering.
You basically answered it. I asked how your friends are doing with
Okay.
all of this. Yeah.
So yeah, mostly yeah. Got the thing there.
So you mentioned you have a do not resuscitate if you're in surgery or something and something doesn't go well. Like I've known other people since it's been legislated who are more obviously close to death, who start I forget what the full process is, but you have like a consultation with somebody who, sorry?
Yeah, you have to talk, and then you have to two consultations. They have to
For
sign.
MAID, yeah, for MAID stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that something that you would think about, considering that you've had this extra time? You are so active. You're physically a very, just active person. And you just said you you might have the hardest time dealing with it when you lose that ability. Is that something then that would be, you would consider, or is that kind of a negative way to look at it still, and you would still just try to see the positive in whatever, wherever the life and the disease takes you?
I have all the forms filled out, so it's, if it's needed, it's all done.
Okay.
So
Was that a
Yeah.
difficult thing to like think through with your family and stuff like that, or is that just a way you're compassionate with yourself?
yeah, no, it was easy. I think it would be easier. It would be harder feeling like if I was in really bad shape. I don't know. No,
Yeah.
I've out and not worried about it. When I have to use it, or when I have to stay in a home kind of thing. If I
Right.
can't, I don't know exactly what my reaction will be.
Yeah.
Presumably the same.
So did they tell you your sight would be the first significant loss
Uh,
to anticipate?
No idea. It's just beaten up, and because my brain is so weird, because it's moved, it continuously moves from the left to the right, and started at when I was 2 years old.
Mm.
What will happen, or what will be the thing that I lose? But the parts that are safe-ish or aren't destroyed, my brain doesn't seem to move things until there's danger. Then it moves things to the other side. And they wanted to know, like with speech and things like that, they knew that it had been moved to the right hand side. And now for the first surgery, they were really thinking maybe we can, if there's nothing on the left side, we can really dig in there. But it turns out I'm really weird, and I use both my left and my right part of my brain to speech and things like that. So the doctor's like, we'll just assume that's a good thing.
So I have a question. If
Yeah.
you said this is something you've lived with without knowing since you were a child or
Two,
born,
yeah.
two, how did they determine that? I guess it's a two-part question. How did they figure out that you had it since you were two? And also, were there any signs? Like, was there, thinking about how your brain maybe was more elastic than many, obviously, if it's been able to accommodate for some of these changes in itself all this time. And was there any evidence of that as you were growing up, that maybe now looking back, people have said, oh, maybe that's why, you were able to do whatever,
Yeah. So the first question is, the reason they know I is 2 years old, is the different thing, but the speech really helps in that I have the basic, very initial speech and things like that are on the left hand, but the rest is been moved to the right hand side. And there were other things as well where they started here and then they moved over. And the second one, which I was going to be sure I remembered, was the I failed. What was the second question?
Just were there signs looking back that you can attribute maybe to this?
I can look back 5 to 10 years. I can look back I can look back 10 years and see things. One was in 2001. I worked at a restaurant in Red Deer that was called, it was right on the highway, and it was a 60s restaurant. And I could do 20 orders without writing anything down. And so I had that sort of thing. So that's 2000. That's 2000, 2001. Then I came back working at Boston Pizza, like 2010, 2010. And I could only take like 1 or 2 orders. And it was much more work and much less fun. Because it was so much fun doing it when I had the skills. So I didn't realize it at the time. but it would, just think of getting older or whatever. But there were some obvious things like that, and those are but yeah, those last 10, 20 years, especially 10 is where those, yeah, gets more than 10, 15, 20 is where they really became obvious. Like when I was coaching at here's the world of Tokyo. I was coaching there and really having a good time, but I would have times where I just lay on the ground because my head isn't very happy. And you think of it as like having a headache kind of thing, but I knew it was really bad. And actually, I went to hospitals a number of times, but at little hospitals, they don't ever deal with things like that. And the closest looking back is that someone thought I'd broken blood vessels or something, and they were there, and then they dried up, kind of thing. So no one in that world was, and I mean, I had two people in the world that could do anything about it anyway. Well, and none then. Yeah. So going back 10, 15 years, maybe 20, I can get some IDs that are identifiable that, yeah.
But at the same time, you also did a master's degree, a PhD, taught for a few years, so that, look, I appreciate the question. Looking back, you'd see it, but it's not as though you weren't able to continue to move forward in some pretty big strides.
Yeah, the general thing I say, as a normal person, and doing my PhD, it was actually in the middle of that I had, I went out from the, when I, just before they figured out, oh, you have all that good endogloma, you're brain. But yeah, I did it in the middle, had this experimental brain surgery, and then went back to doing my research in the summer, which is when I do my research. And so, yeah, I can't, there were certain things, like there's certain things now, but yeah, normally you have brain surgery, you don't think, oh, I'm gonna, a couple of months to get back on, start doing my research. But yeah, 2 months later for my surgery, I started feeling better before my surgery, and then during I just really felt better. And then what it was, I say, yeah, it was, I think sort of April, May, I just kept feeling good and got out in the field and went to research. It was more painful for Terry because it was 37 degrees all the time, and she hates bees, and I'm walking through 50,000 bees at a time.
So the surgery was like remote, not in the same geographic area.
So,
he's hooked up to these things where he just controls it remotely. So this is all recorded digitally, I would imagine.
Constantly doing MRIs the whole time. So every few seconds, there's new MRIs.
So have you watched the recordings of your surgeries then?
I've seen. I tried to get as much as possible. I've gotten. I don't think I have one of that. It was experimental, like everything else, but that one, like I said, the date that my surgery was done at the end of February, and then the first ever in history was done in March or in April. So I'm the experimental.
I mean, I'm just kind of fascinated that essentially it took a pandemic for the world to figure out Zoom, to offer Zoom as a technology. But that many years ago, it was possible to do not even just a robotic surgery, but a remote robotic surgery. I have another question, Jason.
Okay. What's your question?
Well, when any of us plans like a will, part of that process can be to plan a funeral, but we do it more vaguely. I kind of like that hymn, and I want this pastor, or don't want this, or whatever. Have you gone through that full planning and talked about that with your family and stuff?
The will part, I've been updating my will since I was, I don't know, 17 years old or something, but I have done a full update of it. In the second part, I sort of want to say I remember part of it. What was the second
Just
part of the question?
have you planned a funeral, or have you kind of talked through that kind of logistics of it? Very, being an active planner.
I tried to be. They didn't have a whole lot of interest in my talents. For that, I asked if I was allowed to like still be, if I was doing the maid thing, if I was allowed to be alive for that. I was told very much, no, you're not allowed. I want to like celebrate you after you've died.
Right.
So yeah, the organization of that.
Have you thought about doing a living wake?
I've sort of. Again, they're not terribly interested in doing a wake or get together, do stuff. That's all. But with me, they want to do activities, not miss
Right.
out on activity kind of thing.
Yeah, sure, that makes sense.
Where I am there.
Yeah. Do you have pain?
I mean, people have way more pain than me. The only pain is my eyes get shots of pretty high levels of pain. But it doesn't last too long and then it goes away. I still don't know exactly. I mean, I know where it is. My last surgery was right on the optical nerve. So that was why there was a pretty high chance of me not being able to see and be blind.
Wow.
But like everything, it worked perfectly. So yeah, that's where that is. Why I can be whatever, but yeah,
Good karma.
they're organizing those type of activities, and we'll just have fun activities together. And I
Perfect.
realized they're fun. My grandma had her her death and her wake all together, which I didn't even realize. I knew it was happening, but I didn't really think of it that way. And I don't know if that's now a common thing or anything. But I thought that worked out quite nice to have having the first part and then hanging out together, having fun. I don't know if having fun is the right word, but
Yeah.
So I'm hoping it's to do something like that.
Well, I asked mostly just because one of Yvonne's friends did. He knew that he only had a couple months or something, and he said, I would rather I gather with all of you while I'm alive than not see you again and have a chance to tell stories and stuff like that. And it was really quite a great experience, but definitely a very personal choice and very kind of situationally, a decision for sure. But anybody else have any questions or comments or whatever?
Okay, thank you. I have a question for you, Jason. I've thoroughly enjoyed you talking this afternoon. I'm wondering, is there a meaning behind you entitling this conversation "Dancing in the Tunnel"?
Yeah. Essentially, I'm dancing towards being dead, but I'm gonna have as much fun as possible doing it. I visited my parents on Vancouver Island, and then on last Friday, a week from Friday, they flew back to the warm part of the world, Florida on the Gulf of Mexico side, and so I'm going to go visit there, and then hopefully going to go to Europe to visit some of my best friends who there. My best woman is in England, and one of my best friends who we talk almost, I don't know, every other day. She's moves all the time, but she's in France. So I very much intend to get there spend time with her. And I'm not sure this is the right place, so feel free to ignore it. I've asked other people and I haven't told it to you, so it's not possible. But like describing our relationship is almost impossible, because it's like our relation. We'll basically do everything together except have sex. Like we would have naked well, we've ran around Camrose and swam in our little lake naked together. We are totally free to do anything, and so it would be very cool to visit her and her family. But yeah, because we have such a close relationship, and then like I said, my best woman from the wedding is in England, and I visited her a number of times. She's visited here like 17 times. So, but yeah, and then Wade, who I went to Camrose with for 4 years, and we did our grad school together too. So I'm open to visit. COVID was a bit of an annoying or an excuse, one of the two.
I was just going to compliment you, Jason. Your positive attitude is just admirable. I know I've asked at one of your previous talks with the Human Library, I asked about faith, and you had at that point shared that you don't have a religious faith. And for me, like, if there wasn't religious faith in my life, I would just feel hopeless. I would feel like my life would be meaningless. And so maybe it says more about our personalities than anything else. Your positivity is just fabulous.
Yeah.
I'm glad, because I would agree it is, but I'm glad that you think that too, because there are people very worried about me, because I'm dying and that without having a religion, without having their religion. But don't worry about me.
Yes, well, thank you for sharing your story. It's really, I was saying when you couldn't hear us, I was saying you should be a motivational speaker, because the ability to be so positive, I think, is a rare trait. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yes. Well, I will suggest then that we draw this to a close, and thank you again, Jason, as always.
No problem.
You continue to amaze us. It's our treat to have you here.
No, it's great to be here. It's great to talk to you guys. I really appreciate it that you're here.
You bet. All right. Well,
Thank you, Jason.
yeah.
And then,
Have a good night, everyone. Thank you all. Take care.
Yes, you guys too.